What's up, folks? Welcome back to the stream. It's Tuesday. We're getting tactical, and I'm being attacked by an angry cat that is mad that I'm live streaming instead of doing snuggles, I guess. How's it going, everybody? Hope everyone had a wonderful holiday for those of you in the community that are into that kind of thing. It's turtling time. We're getting all tortoisey up in here. Yeah, so not a lot of events over the past week, so we don't have much normal stuff to talk about. But what we didn't do, last week we talked about Necrons, obviously, in their debut weekend of December 16th and 17th, and they had some really good results over there. What we didn't talk about is Adeptus Mechanicus, which, to be fair, did not have as good of a weekend. And I don't know if that's to anybody's surprise, but they did have some reasonable results, and I have painstakingly gone through and picked out a lot of the top results, either with top players or with undefeated results for Adeptus Mechanicus over the course of the last couple of weeks. And we're going to be talking about the detachments and the army lists that are strong within the new codex. So what we're going to do is I've broken them down into the three top detachments that are being used. Kind of ironically, this is like maybe a little bit funny, but I think it's pretty clear, at least based on the first week of data, and probably just reading the stuff on the detachment pages with our eyeballs, we can kind of tell that I think Necrons are much stronger than Adeptus Mechanicus on release, but the internal balance of Adeptus Mechanicus is probably actually superior to Necrons, at least when it comes to the number of competitive detachments that they have. Because we see three detachments kind of coming out of the woodwork here and seeing a lot of play. In Necrons, you're either a Hypercrypt Chad or you're like a Virgin Canoptek Enjoyer. Those are the only two options really that you have. Like maybe you can play some Awakened Dynasty, like maybe you can play some Obeisance Phalanx, but it's not really quite as good. That said, the same is not true for Adeptus Mechanicus, because Adeptus Mechanicus have three detachments that are seeing wide play. Those are not only the Rad-Zone Cohort, which is the evolution of their Index detachment, but also we see Skitarii Hunter Cohort, and we see the Data Psalm Conclave, I think it's called, is what the name of it is. How have I already forgotten the name of the stupid detachment? Data Psalm Conclave. I nailed it. Those are all seeing play, and I think Data Psalm Conclave is a little bit surprising because that's not really one that we had much discussion about going into the Codex, which is kind of cool. I think everyone expected Skitarii Hunter Cohort to be good because it's so far the stealthy detachments for each of these armies have all been kind of like the best ones. Almost anything that has a lone operative effect is very good. Like they give you infiltrators, they give you lone operatives, and you're like, okay, it's good. We've made a good detachment already. And that's basically what those detachments are. We saw the Tyranids with Vanguard Strike Force, in Space Marine still, obviously with Vanguard Spearhead, and or Vanguard Onslaught and Vanguard Spearhead, and then also with Canoptek Court and Hunter Cohort. We'll see if that trend continues going on into the future. But yeah, so I've broken down the lists into each of those detachments, and what we'll do is we'll talk about the lists, and we'll talk about the strengths and weaknesses and all of the abilities within each of those detachments as we do so. So buckle up, everybody, and let's dive into some freaking Adeptus Mechanicus. I went through the large event, the GT level event results for Adeptus Mechanicus are slim pickings, but I've gone through like literally hundreds of RTT level events to find undefeated and winning record AdMac lists. Not to say that AdMac, I don't know what the win rate is for AdMac, and there are a lot of entries that are not very good. But I think it seems like a lot of them are 2-1. AdMac seems like a very 2-1 kind of a faction in RTT level. But yeah, I went through all of these events earlier today. I've spent hours on this stream so far, so I hope you appreciate it. But yeah, what we're going to start off with is some of the larger events. So we have Rise of an Empire. This is a Rise of the Empire, I should say. Oops. This was streamed, I believe, over by Wargames Live, if I remember correctly. It was about 100 players, close to 100 players, but only ran 5 rounds, so there were multiple undefeated. And at the end of it, we did have one Adeptus Mechanicus player, Ryan Young, at 4 and 2 with some pretty high scores. Both of his losses were 84 points, which is impressive. So yeah, we'll talk about his list first, and he started in Datasolm Conclave. So that's what we're going to be talking about to begin with, and we'll dive into some of the power of this detachment. Now, I think, like I said before, this one kind of came out of nowhere, because I don't know if too many people expected anything but Skitarii Hunter Cohort to be good. At least I'm not sure I did. But it just has some pretty solid abilities. The first one is you get essentially the choice of one of 2 detachment abilities at the start of the game, so beginning of the first battle round, and you get that for the entire game. So it's only one selection. It's not like a combat doctrine where you can choose every round, but you do get it for every turn, which is pretty good. And the big one, in my opinion, is +1 AP within half range. So already, Cataphront Breachers are probably the number 1 unit in the army, and we can take a look at the Breacher datasheet. I think we already have on stream before, but because we're talking about Adeptus Mechanicus, it is particularly pertinent to this conversation. Cataphront Breachers are really strong. They are... Can't read all this garbage. With their arc rifles, they're rapid fire 2, so they're shooting 4 times at 15 inches. At anti-vehicle 4, flat 3 damage, which is kind of insane. And there are ways you can give them lethal hits if you attach a Manipulus to the unit. So the fact that they're only strength 8 and they're relying on that anti-vehicle isn't always quite as bad as it seems, because a lot of those will be lethal. Now, the big downside is that they are only AP 2, so a lot of times you're shooting at something in cover. If they're a 3-up saving cover, for example, they're saving on a 4. That said, there are multiple ways to get yourself +1 AP. So, obviously, we have Doctrina imperatives. So, when you're shooting at something from your own deployment zone, so like turn 1 onwards, or you are shooting someone in your opponent's deployment zone, you can get +1 AP. On top of that, because we're already trying to get within 15 inches for our half range, we're already going to be triggering the Datasolm Conclave, this panegyric procession, to get an additional +1 AP. So you can bring these heavy arc rifles to AP 4, which is pretty good. That's solid right there. You're triggering your lethal hits fairly often because you're getting full hit rerolls when you're up next to a battle line unit. So this, I think, especially because of how compressed the fight is in 10th edition, you're very rarely in this situation where you're like super far away from your opponent. This ability, +1 AP at half range, is basically, in 80% of situations, is basically just +1 AP. Which is super sick. And if you're in the Doctrina imperative to give yourself Assault, then you're moving relatively quickly as well to get yourself into that range too. It's not super fast. You're only move 5, but move 5 plus D6 is an average of 8 or 9 inches, and that's pretty good. On top of that, we have some pretty good enhancements for them. Tempercopia is a good one to prevent enemies from messing with you in melee. It gives you fights first, and the Breachers aren't the greatest thing in melee, but they're not bad. They've got 2 attacks at 3 damage apiece, so the entire unit swinging is like 12 attacks. They're only weapon skill 4, but their reroll hits come into play every time you make an attack. So as long as you're within 6 inches of a battle line unit, it's 12 attacks, and it will probably get 9 hits through. Potentially some lethal hits at strength 8, AP 2, 3 damage, which is solid. There is another buff, Citation and Savagery. You get +1 strength on the charge. It's not that. You get, going from strength 8 to strength 9 is pretty good, but you're mostly a shooting faction, so that this is not as exciting of a benefit, for sure. But this thing, giving your unit fights first, means that you get to make that swing onto any opponent that charges you too. So you're potentially getting an Overwatch with full rerolls if you're next to a unit. And then they come into you, and you're getting all of those big Arc Claw attacks with full rerolls as well. Full hit rerolls, anyway. And that's like a lot of damage coming into a unit that's attacking you, especially if they're like 3 wound heavy infantry. They just get eviscerated by these guys, which is super cool. So that's all pretty good. And then we have some pretty solid stratagems as well. They all benefit Cult Mechanicus. So that is specifically, we can see the list here. It's tech. It does affect the Cataphrons and mostly just Electro Priests. Generally, it won't affect your Skitarii units, but as long as you're attaching Tech Priests to those units, they're going to be Cult Mechanicus regardless. But most of the time, we're here to benefit the we're here to buff the Cataphront Breachers, so these are all sort of Cataphront Breacher benefits. One gives you a benefit against mortal wounds, so it kind of doesn't really matter that much. One of them gives you +1 to wound in melee, so that's really good, especially in conjunction with the Tempercopia. So you can use that, get that strength 4, or that strength 8 up to strength 9, or up to +1 to wound. So you're wounding most things on 4s, the entire game on 4s essentially, and you're potentially 3s or 2s against lighter targets. You can get Fight on Death, which is okay, I guess. You can get... Oh, no. My light is off. Hello. Did it die? Don't die. That's weird. Ah. Now it's super bright. I don't know what happened there, chat. Fix that real quick. All right. We got it better. Yeah, one could give you deal mortal wounds to units within 6 inches, which is okay. And then one of them can give you your opponent -1 to hit if they fail a battle shock check. It's a really weird, stratagem because it affects your opponent in the start of your movement phase. And they have to be within 18 inches of you, and then they have to fail a battle shock check. So first of all, if they fail the battle shock check, they are battle shocked. So it is a way to force out-of-phase battle shocks. It's not command phase, which is annoying. If it was command phase, it would be simultaneous with your scoring, so you would actually be able to score people, or just score objectives. I think it's specifically your movement phase, so it doesn't do that, but it's a little bit weird. And it's not end of your movement phase, so you can't move up and get enemies within range of the stratagem. They have to already be in range, but it's after the point at which you score your objectives, so you can't use it to flip objective control. So super bizarre. That said, it will give them -1 to hit on all of their attacks if they fail the battle shock check. So definitely wish it was like it was a reactive stratagem. It's definitely weird, but it has the potential to affect your opponent across multiple phases and potentially mess with them in terms of their reactive stratagem usage as well. So it's not totally useless. It's just a very strange stratagem. And there's a lot of those in this codex. The codex is full of like super bizarre stratagems that are really weird. Yeah, like I say, I think this detachment mostly is just really good for your tech pre-sled units and your Cataphront units, and those are some of the best units in the codex anyway. So it's already buffing the units that are strong. So what are we taking in there as well? You get +1 to wound for 1 CP in the fight phase, which is good. Yeah. Anti-mortal strat is good versus tank shock. I guess that's the case. It feels like, it's every time I see an anti-mortal strat, I'm like, oh man, wouldn't that be good if it worked against devastating wounds? Which I think when this codex was written, it probably did, and it no longer does. I don't know. I would. There are situations in which it's good, but it's so rare that you want to trade a CP with your opponent to protect against an ability that your opponent to get a 50% reduction to their stratagem usage, right? Your CP expenditure then is automatically less useful than their CP expenditure, which just feels bad because you're only mitigating half the damage that they deal, versus that they get the full value essentially. If that's weird. So yeah. Anyway, we'll talk about some lists that use the Data Psalm Conclave. So this one's from Rise of an Empire. This is Ryan Young, as we said before. He's running double Manipuli. So these are the lethal hits guys that give you a 4+ invulnerable save once per game. So they're really good at keeping your Cataphront Breacher teams alive. We then have a Dominus with the Tempercopia. So the Dominus is a little bit better at a sustained fight. So the Manipulus can sort of spike your survivability. You give the 4+ invulnerable save at the start of a phase. The Cataphront Breachers don't have a great armor save, so most of the time, if your opponent's AP2 or higher, that's going to be the 4+ invulnerable save is going to be a big deal. And oftentimes the Breachers play sort of out in the open, so they actually oftentimes don't have cover, because they're hard to get cover on. They're like weird. They're like big round bodies basically. So it's hard to like stick bits behind things to get cover. So they're actually one of the units in the game that may not, in some instances, not be benefiting from cover. But they can spike a 4+ invulnerable save once per game. Then they get the lethal hits, which super helps the arc rifles. I don't know why we clicked on this guy. We want to click on Dominus. The Dominus is a little bit more sustained because he gives you a 5+ feel no pain permanently, and then can mortal wound vehicles. It looks like we've taken a mix of both of those in order to join into the unit. So we have 2 Cataphront Breacher teams, or 3 Cataphront Breacher teams, and then double Manipulus to join into them, 1 Dominus. And the Dominus could potentially... We also do have a Fulgurite Electro Priest unit. So the Dominus could jump into the Electro Priest unit to... they get a -1 to wound effect, and then also they get a 4+ feel no pain. So they actually become kind of difficult to kill for not too many points, but they're still only 1 wound, I believe. So they will still go down pretty quickly. Like you're paying a lot of points for not quite an Arco-Flagellant. Yeah, you're just a 1 wound silly goose at toughness 3. So the -1 to wound is like, it's alright, I guess, but it's not that exciting. You can also, I guess, put the Techno-Archaeologist into them too, but yeah, I don't know. The Electro Priests are good to trigger the mortal wound stratagem though, because they get a buff on the roll to deal mortal wounds. So that might be why we're seeing them in the detachment. We have 1 Iron Strider Ballistari, just because they're efficient. 1 unit of Sterilizers for actions, 1 unit of Cerberus Raiders, and an Infiltrator unit. So we have a lot of forward operators. The Infiltrators naturally infiltrate, obviously. And the Raider units scout. They have a big scout move as well. 2 Sidonian Dragoons, and a Calidus Assassin. So a lot of utility units, sort of holding down the back line. We do have 3 Skitarii Vanguard squads to sort of follow around the Cataphront Breachers. Usually, the Cataphront Breachers you'll have the 6 Cataphront Breachers up in front, and then you'll trail the character behind, and then 6 inches behind the character is one of these Skitarii Vanguard units, giving them full rerolls. It's typically sort of the formation that you construct in order to get the most out of the Breacher teams. But it's really the Breacher show for this detachment, because everything's kind of sort of angled towards keeping those guys alive. And the inclusion of the Electro Priest is pretty interesting too, because we do have a little bit of use for the Electro Priest, and we do have the Dominus does have the Temporcopia, so you can play, if he's in the Electro Priests, you can play them relatively far forward, and they always get to swing first, which is kind of nice. And if we go back to their data sheet, their attacks are pretty good. They're not great. They're devastating, but they have no access to rerolls. So they're fighting first. You get 20 swings, like you hit 14 of them, and you get a couple devastating damage, and you wound a couple times at AP1. So it gets all right. You'll do a little bit of damage on somebody coming into you, and then you're tanky on the swing back too, which is sort of nice. So you can play that unit kind of aggressively if he's joining into them, or obviously he could just be buffing a Breacher team with that 5+ feel no pain, which is also pretty good. We then have the Techno-Archaeologist in the list too. These guys, we're going to see them a lot in these lists, and we've already seen them in previous Adeptus Mechanicus lists, because they have an Omni Scrambler's aura, so they have a 12-inch no deep strike zone, which is already super duper good for keeping your objective safe against things like Inceptors, which can really kind of mess up Adeptus Mechanicus if they're able to get in on angles where you can't easily overwatch them with the Breachers. The Breachers will straight up kill an Inceptor squad as it comes down, but if they can angle it in a particular way so that they can only get reactive fired by 1 or 2 Breachers, then they have flat 3 damage guns, which the Breachers absolutely hate, which will rinse them super hard. The kitty's here. All right. Well, let's keep poking. So we also saw in the other big GT. Hi. What are you doing? In the other big GT of the weekend last week, we also saw Adeptus Mechanicus go 4-1.
Can we look at the new infiltrated data sheet? Their new ability makes them almost impossible to take an objective from them without killing the unit.
Yeah, we can take a look at the new infiltrators. They are pretty good. So the new infiltrators force a battle shock check. So first of all, they reduce leadership within 6 inches of them. You get -2 if they're near a battle line unit, although that's a little bit tough because if they're near a battle line unit, then they're either far back or the battle line unit's really far forward because they're usually infiltrating onto an objective. So you force a battle shock check start of the fight phase at least -1, which makes them super awkward to engage into. They themselves don't hit super hard. They're like mostly 1 damage, like kind of shitty attacks. They've like, I guess the good like multi-shot pistol, but it's only strength 3 AP 0. So they're not really there to do damage, but they are mostly there to hold down the objective. So yeah, I think like the cool thing about them is they can just mess with you on objective control. Like you can't take the objective from them if you fail the battle shock. Even if you kill them on the charge, but you battle shocked, you don't have the objective, and then AdMech just comes and takes it back anyway. Which definitely kind of requires you to shoot them to death. And because they have infiltrators, they're usually able to like put themselves into pockets that are difficult to shoot at. So I think you're going to see infiltrators in most lists. They are a little pricey for a forward operator, 70 points. For a unit that is almost exactly as hard to kill as 5 Space Marine Scouts for significantly less. But they, I think I guess they have stealth, so it's a little different. But they're like infiltrate already is a good ability to have on your data sheet, and then they also like mess with objective control, which is super strong. So yeah, I think Skitarii and infiltrators, I think that they're in every list that we're going to talk about. I guess we can take a look at this one. I already opened it and then I didn't. I have a sneaking suspicion they're in every list. As I say that, this one doesn't have them. This one has Sidonians. Sidonian Dragoons with guns. That's cool. How often do you see the ones with the guns? Are they different data sheets? Can you take 4? Is that the case? That I did not know. Oh yeah, they are. Look at that. That's sick. Get a little gunshot, 3 damage gunshot. Pew, pew, pew. All right. Well, that's kind of cool. I actually had no idea that you could take up to 6 of them. That's sweet. But I think most of the lists that we're going to talk about today have include infiltrators for that exact reason. For sure. Thank you for the super chat, by the way. I appreciate you. Oh, excuse me. This is a Rad-Zone Cohort. What am I talking about? This is not the same detachment. Do we have any more data psalms to talk about? I thought we did. Maybe we'll just move on to Rad-Zones. I maybe missed up. This is the other thing about these RTTs chat is people are way less stringent about list format, so you get some weird ones. We might just be in on Rad-Zone here today. I thought that there were more data psalms, but I might have messed it up. Yeah, this one's fucked. Some of these are not great. All right, I think that might be all of our data psalms. Well, Ryan Young, way to show us how data psalm works. All right, so I guess we'll move on to the Rad-Zone Corps because that's what the rest of our lists have, I believe. So this is the index detachment. It is pretty heavily changed from the original version. I think definitely for the worse. It definitely got a tone down. I think it probably would have continued to be maybe the best detachment, or at least like tied with Hunter Cohort maybe, if it had remained the same. But it got a big change. So we'll talk about exactly how it works now. The bombardment timing changed. I think that it used to be that you could dodge the mortal wounds if you took cover on the first turn. It was that you automatically dodge the mortal wounds if you chose to be battle shocked. Now it just gives -2 to the roll essentially. So it's a 3+ on every unit to take D3. If you choose to battle shock yourself, it goes up to a 5+ instead. So you can't automatically not take damage from it. Now it now begins at the start of your command phase. I don't remember if that was the same timing as it used to have. I thought it was like beginning of the battle round, but it might not have been. I guess we can look because I have the thing downloaded. It used to be... So it used to be at the start of the battle round, you would take 1 mortal wound. Now it's the start of the AdMech player's command phase. So it dodges... It dodges some mechanics, and it can force Battle Shock. The problem about the Battle Shock check is that it happens during the AdMech player's turn, so that unit can be Battle Shocked and then unbattle shocks in your opponent's turn. But it can sometimes mess up stratagem usage. I have had times where the units that do get Battle Shocked by this effect then can't use like uppy downy strats or like lone operative strats. So it's not irrelevant, but it's not like hugely relevant because it won't be like you won't take a mortal wound in a battle shock check and then like lose control of your home objective or something because you'll refresh before that happens. But it means that you can't like take damage at the start of the battle round and then go first and then reanimate the damage, for example. The damage is going to stick at least until your turn. So there are some situations where it being start of the AdMech player's command phase is a little bit better. So got a little bit of a redux on the rad bombardment ability, which is good. Their a ranged attack enhancement used to add additional attacks, and it no longer does anymore. It just gives you anti-monster, anti-vehicle. Or anti-monster, anti-infantry, excuse me. And they got a bunch of stratagems changed. The stratagems were actually kind of brutal. They lost their reactive fire, which used to be vengeful fallout, and that's just totally gone. That got I don't know what that got replaced with. I think that got replaced with this hit reroll. Yeah. So you can choose a unit that hasn't fired and potentially bounce it to Skitarii units within 6 if it's battle line. So there's a little bit of battle line synergy. You get range attacks targeting enemies within their own deployment zone, which is like fine, I guess. Definitely not as good as the reactive fire of the Breacher team. And then they also lost Advance and Charge. That moved to Scunter Cohort, to Skitarii Hunter Cohort. I'm calling it Scunter Cohort. That's the name now. And you now get an auto 6-inch advance from Aggressor Imperative. So you lost like the lock into Conqueror Doctrina and then Advance, Shoot, and Charge, which was kind of cool. But to be fair, like, not super relevant. And now you get a 1 CP 6-inch advance. Which is super sick. And you can also potentially double activate it if you... oh, it is Skitarii only. That's interesting. I actually didn't realize it was Skitarii only. It's a little bit worse than I thought it was. You can potentially double activate it if you target battle line. So given the fact that all your weapons are assault, advancing 6 inches is pretty good. But I guess you can't use it on breachers, right? Because they're not Skitarii units. That's unfortunate. Yeah, I don't think there's any way to put it on breachers. Yep, Cataphragm's not on the list. Interesting. Well, I have definitely seen AdMech players do that, so don't do that. That's illegal. I'm glad we looked this up because I actually had no idea that that was locked to Skitarii. That is unfortunate though. So I mean, auto 6-inch advances are always good because they're good for late game stratagems, and especially because you always have access to assault weapons. You always have access to big, long threat ranges on action secondaries. So if you're playing tacticals and you like draw teleport homers, you could potentially be moving like 14 inches with Sicarian infiltrators and still performing the action, or like running units to take objectives and stuff like that. Like, it's not a bad stratagem, but it's definitely not super duper useful. Advance and Charge is probably better than Advance and Charge just in the faction that Mechanicus is, but it's it's I don't know. It's maybe a side grade. It's not amazing, but it's also not bad to have anyway. So yeah. Otherwise, we're mostly kind of excited about. This used to be called Master Annihilator, I think. Now it's called Peerless Eradicator, which feels to me like it's like a paraphrase. It's, you know, it's like whoever wrote the codex was like, hey, can I copy your homework to the guy who wrote the index? And they were like, yeah, but change some things so it doesn't look the same. And they changed Master Annihilator to Peerless Eradicator, which is like those two phrases basically mean the exact same thing. But either way, they give you sustained 1 on your unit. So you put that on a Manipulus. You put him into a Breacher unit, and you're getting sustained plus lethal on 6s with full rerolls. And that's like the big wombo combo right there. You also, if you're in Conqueror Doctrina, or if you're in the defensive Doctrina Imperative, you can get an invulnerable save. Yeah, this one. Or I guess they removed the restriction on what Doctrina you can use this in. So it's actually oh, you can't get invulnerable saves. Wow, are these all locked to Skitarii? Hold up, did I not realize that? Oh my god, chat, this detachment got nuked. Why are people playing this? Hold up. That's nuts. Okay, yeah. Well, I guess Skitarii can get a 4+ invulnerable save. That's pretty good, but you can't use it on Breachers again. So we're really just going to data song for Breacher buffs. Yeah, that used to be usable on Breachers as long as you were in the Doctrina. They gave you benefits if you were in your deployment zone. Oh, I guess no. It always was usable on Skitarii only. I don't know. I don't know what I'm talking about. Apparently, wild. Yeah. I am being welcome to AdMech. Yeah, that's crazy. That's Skitarii only. This is not a Skitarii detachment. It's weird that it's locked into that. That's super bizarre. Yeah, I don't. Yeah, I'm gonna be honest. Like, I think the enhancements are kind of the reason that you're in this attachment, is what it's feeling like to me. You get a fight phase -1 to wounds. Like, that's pretty good, but most of you're in shooting fights with people, and it's 2 CP. Like 2 CP non-vehicles. Like, what is that? This attachment seems kind of bad. It's kind of crazy that everyone's playing it. But the enhancements are really good. You're probably always taking at least 3 of the 4. And honestly, it's kind of a question of which ones you do take, because the stealth is any Adeptus Mechanicus unit. That one's not Skitarii locked, which is fine, which is good. So you can combo that with the defensive benefits from the Manipulus or the Dominus. So your Breachers are harder to kill, which is already good. You can get the sustained hits 1 on 1 unit, so you can have a unit that's harder to kill and a unit that's harder that shoots harder. You can also then have a guy who shoots harder, or if you ask for the other ones, you can also increase the range that you rad bombard people at. So this, over the course of the game, is probably good for a bunch of mortal wounds, because you're then expanding your opponent's deployment zone by 6 inches every time you roll rad bombardment, and then forcing a bunch of additional battle shock checks on them. And if you can start to battle shock people who are on mid-board objectives, that's pretty good. Although that's the most expensive one, so that's a little bit awkward. So, you know, I think that's why we're in this detachment, but otherwise the detachment's kind of whatever. People haven't come around to finding the power of data song. Yeah, and I do think as well, as we'll go through these lists here, a lot of people are on Hunter Cohort. Like, the majority of people are on Hunter Cohort, which makes sense because Hunter Cohort rules, which we will talk about momentarily. But we're on Rad-Zone Corps right now. So this one, it's called Blurg, which is a good name. Feels like a good name for a list. We're running triple Domini, so all of the 5-up Feel No Pains. One of them has the additional range on the Rad Bombardment. One of them has the sustained hits. One of them has the -1 to hit. So we have a harder hitting unit, we have a harder to kill unit, and then we have the last guy who's going to be sitting in the back end, bombarding larger areas. 2 Vanguard units to give rerolls. 3 Scorpius Dune Riders. 2 of those, it looks like, are going to be carrying around Corpuscari Electro Priests, which is probably a data sheet we should take a look at. These guys are relatively short range, but they hit super hard once they sort of unlock. Because they're firing sustain 2 3-shot weapons, or they're Tesla weapons essentially, and they have the same profile in melee as well. So they're firing 30 shots with sustain 2, which probably means you're essentially, you should shoot 30 times, hit 30 times, and you're winning like most infantry in the game on 3s. So there's a pretty reasonable chance you're forcing like 20 wounds into basically anything in the game. So they're really good at horde clearing against low armor save enemies. Not to mention the fact that they're already getting assault and potentially +1 AP from the army ability, so your threat range is pretty high, and you can potentially, if your opponent's not in cover or their saves are bad, you can get around lower, like kind of medium armor saves with that too, if you're benefiting from the +1 AP. They also can suppress enemies, -2 move and -2 to advance and charge, which is pretty good. It's only on a 12-inch range, and you have to shoot them. Like, I guess you can split one attack off, like one guy off, and shoot a unit that you need to and slow them down, which is pretty cool. And especially because it works on advance and charge rolls. Anybody who advances and charges, like Marneus Calgar or Orcs, get kind of boned by this ability. -4 inches to the total movement of Marneus Calgar is like kind of brutal. That dude just stands still, essentially, if he's in an aggressor team. And that can be really good to slow down opponents. So you get like this big screening unit that can really mess with your opponent's positioning. They also don't overwatch too bad either, because they have sustain 2. So any 6s, it just becomes 3 hits automatically. So don't hate them. For 120 points, it's like pretty solid as an aggressive unit that's just there to clear infantry, because you have the breachers theoretically to act as your anti-tank. We have an Iron Shrouded Ballistari, 2 units of Sky Stalkers, some support, and then these 4 Sidonian Dragoons, which I've just learned you can take 4 of. Because the melee one and the gun one is different. That's cool. But the melee guys are pretty good as a counterpunch. I mean, they're mostly here because they're really fast single entity units. Then the range guys are good just sitting in the back, and they can potentially snipe out a character or kill a heavy infantry every once in a while, which pays for themselves almost immediately. And then we have a techno-archaeologist to do the thing where we screen really good, which is all pretty sweet. Good stuff. Winning Orcs on 4s, yeah, that is pretty big deal. And Orcs on 4s and Space Marines on 3s is huge. Like Strength 5 is pretty good. Strength 6 obviously is better. Strength 6 is the new Strength 5, I think, but Strength 5 is still pretty good most of the time. So that was our list over here from the Grimdark Grand Tournament. So this one was relatively large, 50-player Grand Tournament from 2 weeks ago. And then we also saw some results with Rad-Zone Cohort from RTTs. So William Puleo here is undefeated, 3-0. If his list would open, thank you. Appreciate you. This one is totally messed up, but we have a copy of it down here using the Rad-Zone Corps. He's running a Skatros, which is pretty sweet. We can talk about the Skatros datasheet. It's not super exciting, but it is pretty cool. Mostly, they have lone operative, and that's good. And they're also a high base movement. Interestingly, no infiltrator, which kind of surprises me. I almost 100% assumed they would infiltrate. And the other thing is that they don't have any like Overwatch mechanics. They force battle shock checks on people that they shoot at, which, to be fair, it's not a good ability, but it's an ability. It's not terrible. But you can potentially like make people unable to armor contempt or something if you hit them with the Skatros. And maybe like if you spam them, you can hit multiple people. They are 65 points apiece though, and I think the problem is that they compete directly with infiltrators, and they're basically the same points value, right? For 5 more points, you get 6 more wounds in an infiltrator unit, split between 5 models. They're not lone operative, but they are stealth, and they infiltrate naturally. So the Skatros is like a little funky because of that. But it's, it's not too bad. The big So they have like a funny gun. We talked about the Skitarii when it was first, or their weapon profile when it was first previewed. They have precision weapons. One of them is either anti-monster or anti-vehicle for D3 damage. The other one's anti-infantry for a flat 3. So I guess it just depends on what you want to be shooting at. The anti-monster weapon is strength 7, so it's higher flat damage anyway, but it doesn't one-shot heavy infantry, which is like, whatever. But I think mostly you're taking them for having a lone operative, like backline objective holder that can just sit in the back and do stuff. The other benefit is that obviously they're lone operatives and they have that 8-inch movement, so they're probably not going to die early, and they're still infantry, so you can keep them in kind of an aggressive position on the table, and then you can auto 6 advance them if you're in Rad-Zone Cohort to go do actions, to like go push for engage, or push for deploy teleport hammers or cleanse or something. Like, they're really good for that, and they're probably not going to die early on. It's just a downside that they're character keywords, so they give up assassination and they don't infiltrate and they don't do anything else. I almost 100% expected this unit to have like a Overwatch for free and hit on regular ballistic skill, like just like a Hexmark destroyer. Because the whole idea is that they're like this big sentinel who literally overwatches for your army. It's weird that they don't do anything like that, but I could see this unit dropping in points value in the future. I think they seem a little pricey for what they do, is the downside. But we are taking a Skitarii in this list. We're running the extra damage on 1 Manipulus. We're running Manipulus, Engine Seer, Dominus, Techno-Archaeologist. So we are all over the place with our characters today. 2 Skitarii Rangers and a Vanguard unit. So 1 Scout unit and 1 not. 2 3-man Cataphrone units. 1 Breacher, 1 Destroyer. Okay, that's interesting. Take a quick look at Destroyers real quick. So they're... there they are. They're taking plasma guns instead of the anti-vehicle weapons, which is good because the anti-vehicle weapon for them is only AP1, so this probably doesn't do anything, honestly. That one's pretty bad. Anti-vehicle 2 is nice, but again, only vehicles, not anything else. They overwatch on 5s, but they don't overwatch for free, and they don't get rerolls, which is sad. But they are shooting 4 times at the max 36-inch range, so they're better at a backline sort of just a unit that can sit in the back. And that might be a unit that you want to be giving the Doctrina Imperative for heavy more often than the Assault. There is an enhancement in Hunter Cohort to give both, but I think it's Skitarii only, so I don't think you can put it on these guys. That would be kind of cool. If we could take a Destroyer unit and just sit in the back and hit on 3s, even if you don't have rerolls. Just for the longer range. Because the big downside of the Breachers is that you often most of the time to get all your damage output, you have to be within 15, and your opponent just blows you up after that. It's kind of strange too, because they have a, I guess they take a Phosphor Blaster too, so they have a Rapid Fire 1 weapon, but they can also take a Flamer, a Cognis Flamer, which is the same as a regular Flamer, I guess. If we don't have all the special Cognis mechanics. But they're already incentivized to be at like maximum range. They're super far away from your opponent, so having a Flamer doesn't really help that much. It's kind of weird that they like are so different than the Breachers like that. The Breachers have the melee profile, I guess. So we're running 1 unit of each, 2 Sky Stalker, or 1 Sky Stalker, 1 Sterilizer, 2 Skitarii Infiltrators. So again, we have the Infiltrators up in the front there to force those Battle Shock checks. A big Rust Stalker unit. Wild. That's pretty interesting. Let's take a look at how Rust Stalkers look these days. This list is all over the place. I'm impressed. We are definitely non-standard with this one, but it did go 3-0. Gets +1 to advance and charge, +2 instead if it's within 6 inches of a battle line unit, but it lost its advance and charge from the detachment. So it used to be like the previous was that you would advance D6 +10 near a battle line unit, and then you would probably charge either 2d6 +2 or +1 or +2. So your threat range with this unit was nuts long because you could pay SCP to advance and charge. Now you can't do that, so you can't double up on this ability. You're just moving probably what is 10 + 2d6 as your total threat range, which is a lot less. Turns out 10 + 2d6 less than like 30 inches. And then they either have the cord claw. They all have the blades with devastating wound, and they can cut themselves in AP basically. Or they can choose between anti-infantry and devastating, and then the unit champion gets both, basically. What did we take in this one? Oh, a mix. We took half and half. The halvesies. So 5 devastating weapons and 5 anti-infantry weapons. All right, fair enough. But the amount of devastating wounds they do is pretty good. The problem is that weapon skill 4. Like it's a lot of attacks, right? It's 35 attacks over the course of the whole unit. And a lot of those are devastating. What was it, 20? 20 of them are devastating? 24 of them? So 20 of them. 20 of them are devastating and 15 are just anti-infantry. So, like, you're probably in for... I don't know. You're in for 3 or 4 devastating damage at least. But that does for 140 points. I don't know if that sounds exciting. But I think what we're probably using them for is pushing and stealing objectives away from people with a relatively long throw range. We then have 2 Twin Cognis Las Cannon Iron Striders, 1 Honors Dragoon Crawler, a big unit of Sidonian Dragoons, and a Scorpius Dune Rider. It's good stuff. It's interesting to see the rest of Sarkars on the table. They're just like such an awkward melee profile. Devastating Wounds is good, but the lack of rerolls in the 4+ weapon skill is just like super weird. We also have an Electro Priest unit here as well, 10 Electro Priests that we can maybe attach one of these characters into. Maybe the Dominus. They can advance and charge in Hunter Cohort, but we're in Rad-Zone, is the difference. So like, there is a way to advance and charge with them, but it's not in this list. This list doesn't have it, for sure. Yeah, I mean, like, honestly, he's got both, right? So it's not much in this list particularly. It's not a question of whether or not you take infiltrators or ruststalkers. This guy's just been like, I'll take both. It's fine. I think the other benefit is that, unless I'm mistaken, you can put them in Dune Riders too. And since you're not that excited about advancing and charging, at least in this detachment, like, just putting them in a Dune Rider and jumping them out on somebody is like pretty good. Obviously, you can't move the Dune Rider and then disembark, but you can, yeah, any Mechanicus infantry. But you still get them a little bit of a throw range increaser in a Dune Rider. But we're not playing a Dune Rider today. They're just doing their normal thing. They are Skitarii, chat. I am almost sure that they are Skitarii. Dune Riders also give them full wound rerolls? No. Only with shooting. But they don't have any ranged weapons, so it's no good. If they gave them wound rerolls at melee, that would actually be legit. That would be so good. That would be sweet. Yeah, it is funny to disembark the 40 mil bases off the little transport for sure. Yeah, they are Skitarii keyworded. They're Skitarii and Sicarian, just to confuse you. But there are some of the stratagems in Hunter Cohort are Sicarian keyworded as well. Yeah, the Dune Rider ability, the fire support. Any of the fire supports is shooting only. It's in your shooting phase until the end of the phase. You get rerolls. Yeah, you don't get. It's not until end of turn. That'd be pretty sweet, but I think that they just didn't want to like have to make you remember they use the ability. Although I don't know if that would have been that big of a deal. There aren't too many fire support units that are good at supporting melee units anyway, so it's probably fine. I don't know. It kind of makes sense that it's a shooting only thing, but. That's the word on high from the designers, I guess. So a bit of a weird list on this one from William over here. We also saw the Chemnitzer Open had an undefeated Adeptus Mechanicus, Nikolai Stocks. This one's fucked, though. I think we're going to skip Nikolai. But congratulations on your 3-0, my dude. But I think that moves us on to our Hunter Cohort lists now, of which there are several. So we'll have a lot of time to talk about Hunter Cohort, which I think is definitely the most popular of the detachments for sure, because I think it's a little bit stronger. Eldar got fire support for melee? Did they really? No way. No fucking way Eldar fire support works in melee. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised, because, like, Eldar... Until the end of the turn. What the fuck? No way. Let me look at the OG Scorpius. Oh, the Scorpius didn't have fire support in the index. Yeah, I don't have the AdMech Codex in front of me. Do I have a copy of it on my computer? I don't believe that I do. So I think we're just hopefully Wikipedia is correct on this. That it doesn't work in melee. That's some bullshit right there, chat. God fucking damn it. The design team has such an Eldar hard-on. If that isn't emblematic of a fucking like a massive favoritism, I don't know what is. That's nuts. Are you for real? The Falcon has a better version of the same ability. It's not even called anything different. It's called the same fucking thing. That makes me mad. People are gonna miss that too. Oh, people are gonna fuck it up. What does the Razorback say? I don't think it's never come up in a game for me that Eldar give rerolls on there, or that fire support gives rerolls on their on melee attacks. I had no idea because it's a shitty face. Until the end of the phase. What the fuck? What is this? The Falcon just has a superior version of the ability? Was that in the index too? Because Razorback had fire support in the index. That is some bullshit there. This is so stupid. Chat, you've made me physically angry. That makes me so mad. God damn it. Where's the stupid Falcon? In the Eldar index. Falcon. Fire Prism Falcon. Yeah, so it says, yeah, index Fire Prism says end of turn. Just making sure Wikipedia doesn't have it wrong. Although they usually just rip text from the cards themselves. And then the OG Index Razorback. Actually, I have a copy of the Space Marine Codex. We can make sure that the Razorback still has that wording. I have like, yeah. Well, no, I'm gonna look at the index. What I'm interested in is to see if that is an old version of fire support that is being updated as new data sheets come out. Nope. Nope. It's always worked like that. Until the end of the phase, until the end of the turn. Are you fucking kidding me? It's named the same thing! Template your shit, GW! Man, I gave them so much fucking credit for templating abilities, and it turns out they didn't fucking do that. They just decided to give Eldar the same named ability, but it's strictly better. That's fucking nuts, dude. Are you for real? So yeah, I mean, like, I'm not even like, I think it's fine if the Falcon has an ability that works in melee. Like, to be clear, if you want the Falcon to be like a hybrid range melee support unit, sure, that's fine, whatever. The issue is that it has the same ability. The reason that I had no idea it worked this way, and also, as the people in chat are describing, no one else knew it worked this way, is because the ability's named the same fucking thing. Like, you can't reuse abilities and then make them different. You can't do that. That's just gonna fuck with people, and they're gonna miss it. God, that makes me so mad. That's, you know, that like in the, you know, whatever, like hundreds of thousands of 40k games that have been played since the beginning of the edition, you know that that's been misplayed like hundreds of times too, right? Like, people have been like, oh yeah, I saw my Eldar opponent do this, and I have the same ability, so I'm gonna like disembark my command squad and then reroll wins with it from my Space Marine Razorback, even though the Space Marine Razorback has a different ability, even though it has the same name. And every word but one, the most important one, is the same. God damn it, chat. All right, I'm gonna stop complaining about this. This makes me so mad. I'm so mad. It's just bad game design. Oh my god. All right, chat. Well, I'm sorry to say that because Adeptus Mechanicus are a faction that doesn't say Eldar in its fucking faction keyword, they get the regular version of fire support that doesn't work on melee attacks. So, sorry, AdMech players. That's so stupid. That's very stupid. All right, let's talk about Skitarii Hunter Cohort. Oh my god. Oh, jeez. That's extremely stupid. Yeah. Let's you tell Eldar players the only one because of their army, not because of skill. Yeah, the problem is I don't want to have to tell players that. I want to just beat them. I don't want them to have won in the first place. I want me to have won. We don't have to have a conversation about how powerful their army is. If their army is the same power level, it's fine, and I beat them because I'm better. I don't want an excuse. I don't need an excuse if I just win all my games. At least I'm finding out now, not in the middle of a game. Yeah. I mean, like, it's not a reactive effect, right? It's not like I guess I could play like being like, oh, your striking scorpions won't be able to kill me with your devastating mana blasters or whatever. And then they'll be like, aha, I reroll. And I'll be like, no, what have I done? Like, that could happen, but at least it's not like a reactive move or something that I don't know works differently. Like how the Space Marine Phobos Lieutenant's reactive move is a full normal move, and almost every other one in the game is this D6 and shit move. Something like that. All right, Skitarii Hunter Cohort. We're off of the fire support thing. Now we're going to talk about Skitarii units and being hard to kill. So this is the most popular, I think, out of all of the X1, at least the ones that I looked at. I definitely cut out a couple X1s. But out of most of the lists I looked at, this one is like 2 or 3 times more popular than the other ones. And I think the general consensus is that this is probably the best detachment, at least for like scoring-oriented lists. The downside of the detachment is that it doesn't support breachers at all. It essentially only cares about Skitarii keyword, or in some cases, Sicarian. Excuse me. Sicarian units. And so it doesn't really do anything for your other units, but it supports them so well that it kind of like takes pressure off the other units to overperform. It mostly makes you hard to kill and super maneuverable, which, to be fair, is something that Adeptus Mechanicus needs in a big way. And it's very good at scoring points because of that. So what does it do? First of all, it gives all your Skitarii, infantry, and Iron Strider units stealth. If you are 12 inches away from your opponent and you're a Sicarian unit, you also gain cover. That one's less exciting because you're probably in cover anyway, because you're a Sicarian and you're trying your best to hide with your Space Marine Scout profile. Plus, you have a 5+ invulnerable save, so it doesn't really work that much anyway, but it's nice to have. Stealth is a big deal, though, and especially because it is a non-range limited stealth, it works any distance. So if your opponent is shooting you in melee with a pistol, you're still getting stealth, which is sick. So you're just -1 to be hit from ranged attacks permanently all the time, constantly. That's great. It also has probably one of the best like braces of or grips of enhancements out of all the detachments as well. I mean, Rad Cohort is pretty good, but this one is super sick. One of them gives you Skitarii get both Protector and Conqueror Imperative. This one might be the worst one, even though it is still really good. So you both get Heavy and Assault. So whatever you chose for your army that turn, you can put somebody in the other doctrine. So you can benefit from Heavy or Assault on most of your army to move them up the table. But the one unit you want to be standing and shooting, you're going to be getting Protector on. Pretty solid. And whatever they're targeting specifically, you can flip back and forth. I guess it is start of the battle round, so it's not everything, but there are situations to use it. Although it's probably the worst one because it is so situational. This one's extremely good. You get your unit gains Infiltrate and Scout, so it's the combination of abilities that Space Marine Scouts already have that are really strong, and then on top of that, Veiled Hunter gives units redeploy, up to 3 Skitarii infantry units redeploy. So you have infiltrators and you have whatever your clandestine infiltrator unit is, which is probably like a Vanguard unit. You can push all that stuff up the table, and then depending on who goes first, you can pull it all back. And then you can redeploy, then activate your scouts. So this triggers immediately after the determination to go first, then start a battle abilities trigger, so then you do scout moves. And that is super cool. So you can redeploy yourself back to your deployment zone and then move up anyway. After you blocked your opponent's infiltrators. So it's super hard to infiltrate against this army, because if they win the first turn, the attacker-defender roll-off, they'll drop first, and they'll drop 10 idiots, 11 idiots across the midboard of the table, and you can't put guys anywhere, and then they'll just pull those guys back and put them in a more useful place later. Super sick. Yes. Then the last one gives you a shoot and scoot. You get a 6-inch fire and fade after you shoot with your unit, but it is Skitarii only, so it's not that useful because you can put it on a marshal, I guess. I guess you can put it on a Scatrus. That's kind of cool. But whatever. You're probably putting it on a marshal. Like, a shoot and scoot is really good, but you're not shooting with a unit that does a ton of damage, which is unfortunate. I guess, interestingly, it doesn't specify that you can't embark in transports. So you can disembark from a Dune Rider, shoot, and then move back into the Dune Rider. That's pretty good. I don't know if that's worth an extra 30 points, but it means you get multiple turns of shooting with your unit, so that's probably something at least. But anyway, really good enhancements. Super strong. Also, really good stratagems. That's pretty sweet too. One of them gives all of your Sicarian, Taraxi, or Sidonian units, so not regular Skitarii, only the specialist Skitarii, a 5+ feel no pain. Super good on Sidonian Dragoons, because you get this like big, tough, tanky stealth unit that also then gets a 5+ feel no pain on like 20 wounds worth of bodies, which is super sick. Binaric Offense gives +1 armor penetration to 2 Skitarii units. Pretty good. Solid. You just have to target a single enemy unit, which is, I guess, okay. The downside is 2 CP as well, which is not great, but it is what it is. Here's where Advance and Charge went. So you can get it on your Rust Stalkers in this detachment. The reason that we were talking about the Rust Stalkers not being able to have access to it previously, it was because we were talking about Rad-Zone Cohort. In this detachment, you can still do it, so you can still get the whole combo with +2 to advance, +2 to your charge roll. So you can send Rust Stalkers like a billion inches away. And you're probably already taking a bunch of Skitarii units as well, because you're taking a lot of battle line to trigger the +2 advance and charge. Multiple turns of fire support too. Yeah, I guess that is like pretty sick. I didn't really think about that. What is the best unit for that? What is out of the Skitarii units, who does more damage? Probably Vanguard, right? Rangers are shooting. We got devastating on arc rifles, and it is rapid fire. Rangers are shooting They're just strength 4, 2 shots apiece. So it's almost assuredly Vanguard, right? Because they're strength 3, 3 shots apiece. Yeah, it's almost assuredly Vanguard. And then they have the same weapon, the same special weapons. 1 transuranic, 1 arc rifle, 1 plasma caliber. Yeah, yeah. And then you get... Do the marshals also get the devastating wound pistol? I hope so. That'd be sweet. They do. So you get 2 devastating wound pistol weapons plus 2 devastating arc rifle gun shots. So you're shooting 4 devastating wound shots plus like you might even leave the transuranic arquebus at home. That thing's kind of whatever. I guess like you'll take it anyway. It's probably better than a radium carbine, but it's so inconsistent. The problem is hitting with this unit because there's no benefits to hit at all, which is a little sad. So you're just rolling a bunch of 4-ups and hoping for the best. But then you're shooting 2 plasma caliber shots for 2 damage, and then like 27-ish radium carbine shots for 3 damage, or for anti-infantry. So it's not like a lot of damage, but it's the devastating wounds is like not too bad. I'll buy it, chat, and then re-rolling all your wound rolls and fishing for devastates. That's pretty good. It's not amazing, but I don't know if it's worth the like 180 points you need to spend on it, plus a Skitarian, or a Scorpius, excuse me. How much is the unit of Vanguard? 80. The Marshal's 50, I think. Oh, 35 plus the upgrade, so 65. So that's 145 plus the Dune Rider is like 70. Dune Rider is 80. So it's 225 for that unit. It's a lot of really terrible twin linked attacks though. So I don't know. Maybe it's fine. It's just that 30 point, that 30 point points value. Ooh, that's a lot. Oh, the Marshal gets rerolls to hits. Oh my god, chat, of course. You're not wrong. How could I forget? That's his thing. He does that, and then you can double up stratagems, right? Yeah. Okay. Okay. No, I'm into it. Oh no, this unit rocks. I'm sold. I'm sold on this, on the Battlesphere uplink unit. I hope everyone is playing that because that seems sweet. Yeah, good call out, chat. I totally forgot that the Marshal gets the rerolls. All right. All right. So we're going through the stratagems. We get the advance in charge out of expedited purge protocol and Skitarii units. There's a really weird one for Sicarians, Taraxi, Sidonians, Iron Striders, or mounted units. It gives you +1 to wound, which is great, but only targeting enemy units within enemy units not within 6 inches of another unit. It's weird too because it only affects one of your units. So it is a 1 CP to wound, +1 to wound, which is good, but it only works on specific enemy units, and it only works on the unit you target with it. So it's kind of very, very narrow focus. And what you can do, because it doesn't have a timing restriction, so you can potentially like clear out with some of your shooting. Earlier in the phase, you can clear out the units that are within 6 inches of the target and then shoot them. But the fact that most of the whether or not this works is in your opponent's control, it's a little bit awkward. But it is again only 1 CP, and 1 CP for +1 to wound is that's an old school Veterans of the Long War, and that's a really good ability to have. Although it is on kind of weird units. I guess it's good on like Taraxi sterilizers because you can jump in and just flamer somebody with +1 to wound on all the torches. So that's like probably not too bad. It's weird. It's a little sad that it only works in the shooting phase though. But I don't know. It's all right. The big one here is obviously you get a lone operative. You can't be targeted outside 12, which is really good for 1 CP. Skitaris. I'm having so much trouble. There's like these Skitarii and Sidonians and Sicarians, and I'm just getting tongue twisted now. It's Skitarii infantry only, so it doesn't work on Cerberus Raiders, but it does work on your infiltrators, which is good, and also your little guys. So that's pretty good. I wish it had a the thing like the Tyranid Vanguard Onslaught, where you get an expanded version of it, where it goes down to 6 inches if they already have lone operative. So if you use it on a Skitarii, then they can potentially get a better version of it, which would be cool, but it doesn't do that. And then you also have Sicarian or Skitarii infantry can go to strategic reserves to 3 inches away from enemies. That's really good as well for uppy downies, because you can get a bunch of strategy or a bunch of secondaries. So again, this is like you have tons and tons of forward deploys. You have advance and charge. You have like resilient units with lone operative. You don't have a reactive move, which is a little bit sad. Which is, I guess, to be fair, like that's you can't have everything, I guess, in all of these attachments. But you do have an uppy downy, so it's probably the best attachment at actually scoring, because you're fairly fast, you're very aggressive, and you can jump to your opponent's deployment zone if they ever leave you a space. Your opponent has to be constantly worried about units popping up in their backline. It being 2 Sicarian units is pretty cool too, because you can hold down the midboard with infiltrators, make them lone operative, and then push them into reserve as soon as your other units get there or your opponents overrun them, which is kind of sweet. Good on Taraxi Flamers. Yeah, it's only the Skystalkers that continuously uppy downy, right? Oh no, they shoot scout. Excuse me. Yeah, that does seem pretty good on sterilizers. Yeah, sterilizers like unironically seem really great. If they jump near an objective near a battle line unit and shoot an objective marker, they can be +1 to wound with full rerolls. It's actually like a lot of damage. Let me tell you, as somebody who plays Ahriman and Flamers, this unit seems okay. Unironically, large units of Skystalkers, this seems pretty good. Yeah. All right, let's talk about some lists. Noah Bedom, who is a perennial pretty good player, went 2-1. It is an 80-point loss, so pretty solid loss, and 198 previously in his games at an RTT. He's running Belisarius Call. That's cool. All right, let's talk about Belisarius Call real quick. I don't know if I've looked at him post Codex. I don't know if he changed at all. He has a Primarch ability, so he chooses either reroll hits of 1, +1 to battle shock and leadership checks, or benefit of cover within 6. And that's all units. That's not linked to any keywords, so you can do it to vehicles too. And then he himself hits like kind of a truck. He's 4 2 damage attacks in melee, plus 2d6 1 damage attacks, plus 4 devastating wound attacks. And then he also has a Melta D3 3 damage gun. So it shoots D3 +3 when it's within 9. I like that it's not D3 Melta 3. I like that it's the opposite. So it's always flat 3, so it's really good at killing Gravis units and stuff. And it's blast as well. So you shoot like a big unit of like the big apothecary biologus unit, and your D3 +2 flat 3 damage gunshots against them, wounding on 2s. They save on maybe 6s if they're in cover. So you're like pretty good to kill a bunch of them, and you might be rerolling hit rolls as well if you have the Incantation of Machine Vengeance active. So that's really cool. He's also naturally lone operative, so you can put him next to an AdMech unit. Lone operative, the AdMech unit with the strat, and then he himself is just also untargetable. I like that. You can also put him next to a Skitarii. Okay, so that's what we're taking. So the Skitarii has the Battlesphere uplink, so he can advance, shoot, and then move again. So he moves. Is the uplink restricted on the distance that it moves, or is it a regular movement? It's just 6 inches, right? No, yeah, it is 6 inches. So he moves 8 plus d6, then shoots and moves 6 more. So that's pretty good, and he can also use that to protect Belisarius Call. We then have 2 marshals. One of them has the redeploy. One of them has the infiltration. A billion rangers. Oh my god. 6 units of rangers, 1 unit of vanguard. 2 Scorpius Dune Rider units. 3 units of Iron Strider Balustrari. 1 unit. Oh, there's the 10 sterilizers. We called it, chat. Unit seems good. Especially when you're running 70 infantry, so you have a lot of battle line to trigger your battle line synergies off of. plus a Cerberus Raider, 3 Cerberus Raider units, a billion Sicarians, 10 infiltrators, 5 infiltrators, 5 infiltrators, and a Callous Assassin. Holy shit. Okay. So we have 70 battle line infantry plus 9 Cerberus Raiders and 20 infiltrators taking up the middle of the table. So, like, this unit just swarms the middle objectives and then stands there the entire game. That seems pretty good. And every time you want to, like, easily clear out a unit, you just won't be able to because they're going to lone operative you. Especially, I guess you likely can't duplicate the... lone operative strat. I doubt that that's a battle tactic. It's strategic ploy, and I don't believe that those can be duplicated based on the data slate. But that might have been only free strats. Ooh. Yeah, only battle tactics. Okay, so we can duplicate. Nothing. It's literally all strategic plays. Okay, great. Hold that. Thanks, Skitarii Marshals. We can duplicate command reroll. Let's go. That's stupid. Whatever. But we still get a lone operative on a billion units that are all over the place. So the chances that you actually clear out, especially because we already have like basically what are basically 2 classically lone operative units, because Belisarius Call is unlikely to lose all of the friends nearby him. Plus we have the Sidonian Sketros that's super fast. And then we have another unit that can get the strat. So we have like a million units everywhere, and a lot of them are going to be untargetable. So super tough to kill. It just has a billion dudes, which seems good. That is wild. We also have some similar results. Malik Aminat Rubio went 2-1. This one a little bit less impressive of a loss here, 63 points instead of 80, but pretty similar result. With a Hunter Cohort. This one running triple Marshals, one with each of the special upgrades, plus a Manipulus, 1 Ranger unit, 5 Vanguard units, plus a Dune Rider, so we can jump into and out of the Dune Rider. We have a Manipulus for the Breacher team to give them the invuln save and lethal hits. There's the big Sterilizer unit. Okay, well, I guess we identified the combo. Plus 2 Scorpius Disintegrators, 3 Scorpius Disintegrators, excuse me. That's pretty cool. I don't know if there's so much of a synergy between them and the Hunter Cohort, because it mostly only affects infantry. I think it is all infantry only. You can advance and charge with them for 1 CP. They can benefit from the +1 AP on Binaric Offensive, which is cool. Disintegrator, where you at? There you are. Yeah, they're just a solid gun, I guess. They have Ferromite cannons on them, right? Oh no, Belarus energy cannons. Yeah. So we're shooting indirect fire with them. Which went up to strength 7 AP2, 2d6 blast, but only 1 damage. That's a little bit awkward. But good to put pressure on your opponent so they have to come in to fight the Cataphront Breachers. And you're never going to outscore it, so you can't just like sit there and score a million points because there's Vanguard fucking everywhere. So, I mean, that pick makes sense, even though those guys aren't doing too much damage to a lot of things. You can't sit there and eat 6d6 strength 7 shots every turn. He had Skitarii, but almost basically all of the stratagems target Skitarii infantry. Basically none of them benefit the Dune Rider. Or the Disintegrator, excuse me. We had a lot of smaller events, by the way. We had a ton of incursion events and a ton of team events that also saw some Adeptus Mechanicus results too. Torneo de Navidad, we saw Jorge Latore also go 3-0. These are incursion events, though. We don't want to talk about incursion events. This is the downside of going through all the RTTs, is that we see a lot of 1,000-point games, which are less exciting for our results here. But it's good to see Adeptus Mechanicus. Like, I guess clearly is very good at incursion. There's a bunch of them won with Hunter cohorts in incursion. I think being able to load operative your units is probably that much more effective in incursion games because your opponent has commensurately less things to shoot at and less things to shoot with. So if you're shoot and scooting a ranger unit every turn, plus making a unit unshootable, like that's most of your army. They can't be fired. They can't be fired at. So the defensive play definitely seems pretty strong in this points value. The +1 AP isn't bad. Yeah, I guess that one is probably good. The problem is the 2 CP, I think, because the strats are so strong elsewhere for the Hunter cohort. Getting 2 CP for that is like a little bit awkward, but I mean it basically lets you ignore cover, and so that I think is probably the combo, the Wombo combo. It's just that's such a pricey point. I guess they have the uplink to refund CP though, right? I don't know why I closed the data sheet after I looked at it. That was stupid. Yeah, they have the data tether. So I guess you get 2 chances at refunding. So it's actually probably realistically only like 1.3 CP, right? Because it's like a 66% chance you'll get 1 back because you're targeting 2 units, so you get to roll once for each. You just can only trigger once, 1 at a time. So yeah, I don't know. I guess that's not too bad. Plus, if you can trigger it on all the little guns, it's pretty sweet too. Because they still get the D6 damage missile launcher also, which is twin linked randomly, so that's pretty sweet. All right, I'll buy it. And it can, if it does get heavy, it actually does hit on 3s. It basically ignores the indirect fire penalty. If it's standing still and shooting at infantry, which it probably is, you're adding +2, so it's hitting on 3s with 2d6 blast. It's just expensive is the downside. 180 for that is like a lot. Huh. I guess it's T10 with a 2+, so it's not the easiest thing in the world to kill, but 180 feels like a lot. But if you're mostly not worried about the direct fire shooting because you have so many rangers and the Cataphragm Breachers, then I think it's probably okay.
Is the points cost of the Dune Rider worth it over the Dunny Crawler?
The Dunny Crawler? The Dunny Crawler. Thanks for the super chat again, Ryan. I think they're different, right? Because the Dune Crawler, it's just like it's just a tank that wants to get into a slug match with you, right? So it's just like it's just projecting an invuln save. It's got an invuln save. It's got its defensive profile for points is probably one of the best in the game. It's only 11 wounds randomly, but it's still T10 2-up 4-up is like nuts hard to kill for 140 points. But its range profile's kind of shitty, honestly. It's like it's just a casino. Whatever you're playing with, whether it's the neutron laser or the eradication beamer, I've seen both. It's like, or even the Icarus ray, I guess. It's all over the place, right? You're like rolling random shots, you're hitting random numbers of times, you're like opponent's randomly saving. And it's less consistent damage. The Disintegrator is easier to kill. It doesn't have that invuln save, and it's more expensive per wound. But it's firing indirectly and just like plowing damage into your opponent. And that's solid. I guess, yeah, you also get the you might get the benefit of the Conqueror Doctrina. Or you'll almost assuredly get the benefit of Protector Doctrina, and you'll probably get the benefit of Conqueror. You're probably shooting people in their deployment zone. So I guess it is basically just AP3, and then the strap puts at AP4. It's a good call-out, chat. Hashtag Casino Cannon, yeah. I think people have moved away from onagers because, like... Oops. close my window. Because the survivability doesn't really seem like it's the issue for Mechanicus. Like especially for Hunter Cohort, right? Like it's not like they can't be out in the open and not be shot, because that's just what the detachment does. The problem is being able to interact with your opponent if they don't instigate, because you don't have a lot of, outside like the sterilizers and like Dune Riders like running and jumping people off, you don't have a lot of like very fast aggressive attacks, and the Onager just sort of like falls into that, right? It has a huge base, it's hard to maneuver. It even lost the thing where it moves over 4-inch terrain, which to be fair didn't do anything anyway, so that's fine. But the Disintegrator puts enough pressure on your opponent that they actually have to come and have a slug match with the Cataphrone Breachers, which they probably, at least the Breachers have a good chance of winning. All right, I think I'm in on the Disintegrators. After all this discussion, 540 points or whatever for the Disintegrators. Once they get to that AP value, is like pretty solid. If they're hitting on threes into most infantry, you're shooting 66 shots is an average of a 21. So you're hitting 14 and wounding like 10. And they punch, if you're shooting light infantry, they punch through basically any armor save. So even against heavy infantry, you're killing like 2 or 3 Gravis units, like aggressors. And you just clear like a brick of infantry, of light infantry, like easily. And that's the stuff that's going to contest the Skitarii from scoring. So if you just lose the ability to stop them from scoring, they're just going to max points against you. It doesn't even matter if they can't kill heavily armored stuff, even though they're not bad at it, right? The Disruptor Missile Launcher is like unironically a really good profile. It's just Ballistic Skill 4 sucks. It's the downside, but it could put D6 damage onto somebody. I wish these guys got hit rerolls from something. I guess, like, the Pharamite Cannon hits on 3s against monsters and vehicles, which is okay. They have very little to deal with heavy infantry outside Cataphrons. I feel like, is that really a weakness that you've identified? Because it feels like, if anything, this faction like, has a plethora of ways to deal with heavy infantry and runs out of ways to deal with like heavier armor. You know what I mean? Like even this gun, right? This gun's blast sustain D3 with a 3 damage like AP 3 damage. Like even just like this random Onager Dune Crawler's like, pew, I shoot at 10 3 wound idiots. I shoot D6 plus 2 times. I probably get 1 sustain in there. So I'm hitting like 4 plus D3, so I'm hitting 6 times, winning on 3s. I'd probably kill 2 to 3 models. Like, even with this like random garbage gun. And sometimes you can spike super hard and just wipe the entire unit if you roll a bunch of sustains. Like we just talked about the Disintegrators, like a bunch of Disintegrators will like peel a bunch of Gravis units pretty clearly, like pretty quickly. I don't know. Plus plus Breachers are really good against them. Every Breacher profile is good against them. It definitely, the other downside I think that people have identified is like, because everything's triggering on anti-monster or anti-vehicle, nothing's anti-monster in this faction, and so like heavy armored monsters that don't get killed by Cataphrone Breachers just kind of are suck to play against. You're just hoping for lethal hits on your Breacher team, and that's a little bit awkward. It's not a position you want to be in. Yes, Inky? Cat's just squeaking at me. All right, chat. Well, without diving too hard into incursion lists, that is most of the list that I have to talk about from Adeptus Mechanicus in these past couple of weeks. They tend to wipe more of your stuff if it gets looked at on the outside Dune Crawlers and Breachers. I mean, sure. Yeah, I mean, they're like largely light to medium infantry outside of those units. But, like, such is life, I guess? I don't know. That's a lot of factions, right? And that's why, you know, Hunter Cohort's pretty good, because it can keep that stuff alive, so you can continuously score. All right, chat. I think with that, we're probably going to go ahead and wrap things up. Unless anybody has anything else that we want to look at. Not a super long episode today, but we don't have as many lists to talk about as we did for Necrons. But again, like, it's cool to see that I think there are 3 distinct archetypes kind of branching out. Although I do wonder if Rad Cohort's going to fall off. I did not realize that all the stratagems were like keyworded weirdly. So that's like a much less useful than the detachment used to be. So I do think that the Data Psalm Conclave is going to be super strong because it supercharges Cataphront Breachers this much. But if you want to play the more scoring-oriented list, I do think that that other one, the Hunter Cohort's also very good. I didn't find anybody running any other detachments, no. At least that were undefeated, or that had a winning record. I only looked at lists that had a winning record, so the ones that didn't do good, I didn't look at. No one ran Data Psalm with Tempercopia robots? I could see that. Because you can put it on a Techno-Archaeologist, and then, or a Datasmith. The problem is that it's a lot of investment, right? So it's 100 points a model, plus the character, plus the upgrade. On a unit that is not especially hard to kill. Right? They're 7 wounds each. Like, they have a similar defensive profile to like a Sidonian Dragoon. They're 2 less toughness, I guess, and they're like save is better. But they're like 65 more points. And your opponent is probably, because engaging in melee against Mechanicus is so difficult to begin with, your opponent's probably not like gonna be going into it in melee anyway. So I don't know if that's that exciting. You can get them +1 AP, which is cool. Like, I guess they ignore cover already, so getting to AP2 on the robots is like pretty solid. Plus, they have a torrent weapon, which gets to AP2 is in 6 inches, which is not that good, but it's pretty okay. I don't know, maybe it's alright. Yeah, I think that is the problem with the robots, is that they're just like they're not too hard to kill. 100 points apiece is definitely like a lot for this unit. For 4+ ballistic skill, it doesn't feel like they've the weapon skill ballistic skill is adequately costed into these data sheets, because they just miss a bunch of times. I think that GW like needs to remember that 4+ ballistic skill sucks. I remember back in my day, if you weren't 3+ ballistic skill, you didn't show up, basically. And that's kind of how it's feeling right now. Like, I guess you can get heavy sometimes, but your ranges are so short that you're probably pushing for assault anyway. Oh yeah, they don't have the army ability. Oh, you're right. Yeah. So they can't get the assault doctrine regardless. Well, that's stupid. Yeah, that kind of stuff too is like really this like weird. I guess it's like lore, but that's just annoying. I can't believe your detachment rule is just you get your army ability on some of your units. Like, okay, that's great. Thank you. Yeah. Meh. Big meh. I guess you could also, yeah, I don't know. Take big bricks in this attachment, but I don't know if this attachment's that exciting. Maybe just give everybody your army ability instead of like keywording it weirdly. Yeah, you could drop the, Johnny, I did have a nice Christmas. Thanks for asking. You could drop the points on the tanks for sure, I think. if you wanted to drop points. Like, the Skitarii is already cheap enough, like you said, though. I don't know if you can drop it too much. I'd like to see the Skatris go down. I think it's, like, that's an interesting unit, and I think that it's not good for shooting, but, like, I think you need multiple of them if you want them to do anything in terms of offensive output, but they're also just a good utility unit. So I'd like to see that go down to, like, 45 points, which is kind of what I thought it would be to begin with. I was shocked it was so expensive. And I think you could see the vehicles drop. Paying 180 points for a 4+ weapon skill, like a 4+ ballistic skill vehicle, just sucks super hard. But I don't think we're going to see changes in the upcoming data slate. I think I would be shocked if we didn't see changes before the like Q2 2024 data slate. So I would give it 6 months before we see any changes to this codex. Worst points per dollar. Yeah, I mean, that's just like AdMech. I don't know what the AdMech like pricing structure, what the idea was. It must be that AdMech are like, because the models are so fiddly, they're like technically difficult to create, so they have to upcharge them, but like they're not very elite and they're all very expensive, so it is weird. But it is what it is. What do I think the new teased Dark Angels guys are going to do? We actually talked about that on stream earlier today. So I streamed a Purple Channel game earlier. We played against the new Cohort, which was super fun. It was a really, really interesting game. And we're talking about those guys. The going theory is, as far as I know, is that they might be like a company heroes unit. Where you can join Dark Angels specific characters into it, which would be cool. And what would be cool is if you could take both. And then you just get like fucking like 6 units of little company heroes running around, which would be sick. The Binary Bros. Hi, Yankee. Those new I want to look at the new. Did they put the new Dark Angel stuff on Warhammer Community? Oh, they did. Yes. Because we should take a quick peek at those guys, because the models are like incredible. So there's Belial. He's all right. This dude never wears a fucking helmet, and it pissed me off. He has this dumb face out. Nobody cares about your face. It's a cool model. I don't know if I'm that into it. It's kind of generic, I guess. It's weird that, like, I don't know, his whole breastplate is like kind of undetailed. I don't know. I think I'm just nitpicking, but it's whatever. He seems fine. Especially when you compare him to the updated Asmodai, though. He's like, okay. Like, he's definitely out in the cold. And then the new Inner Circle guys are super sick. These are some of the coolest Dark Angels models we've seen for ages. They definitely have the same, like, vibe as the dudes, the Forge World dudes. Who are the Forge World dudes? Oh god. The Horus Heresy guys. I'm just going to look up Dark Angels, and we're going to see if we can find them. Boop, 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 boo. Yes! The Deathwing Companions. They're also basically the same unit. I guess these guys have two-handed swords. But, like, man, those Dark Angels, like, Knight Brothers, they're good every time, dude. So, yeah, these models are sick. Like, these are models that would make me play Dark Angels just by themselves. Does it say, like, how they're kitted? Because it's, like, they have a banner guy. They don't have the same, like individual characterization as the company hero. So maybe they're just, like, a Blade Guard veteran squad. I bet at the very least they're going to be, like, a Sword Brethren equivalent that just, like, hits like a fucking truck. Tell me more about them. Oh, it says they safeguard the chapter's mightiest heroes. No, they're definitely like they're definitely a company heroes equivalent. They're probably going to be a bodyguard unit that's like -1 to be wounded. Also, they use bodyguard in the description. Almost assuredly a bodyguard unit. They fight In complete silence. Oh, they're like death troopers. Highly encrypted messages. They do the death trooper like. It's kind of fun. I like that idea. They have their own weird computer language. All right, I love these. Seem good. Maybe Belial will get a helmet swap. He has a hoodless head, but I think if he had a helmet, they would have shown it. But like, you could just replace his head, especially if his head is, if there's multiple head options, you could like it'll be a separate piece, and you could just replace it with a regular Terminator. Especially because I think the new Deathwing Knights kit has multiple head options, so you'll probably have extras like kicking around. So it'll be fine. You can convert up a sweet Belial. He's also just like the most generic Terminator character, because for the longest time he didn't have a model. So he's just like hyper generic. He's just like a man with a Stormbolter and a sword. Like you could just build him out of whatever. You got parts lying around? Whatever, build a Belial. At least he has a cool new model now. He's on like a big base too. He's on a big 50 or whatever. With like a little skeleton. Yeah, he's alright. Excited for Rise of the Crew? Dude, I hope so. I fucking hope we get sweet crew models. I like the idea of Kroot as an army. I don't like them as an auxiliary, but like, God, there was a hot minute when you could play like there was like a Kroot index and you could play that shit together, all the Kroot together. Oh, so good. That's what I want in my life. You could play like Kroot with wings and different like Kroot riding on other Kroot, and all the Kroot could get different like upgrades and shit. Give me that. Inject that energy directly into my veins. That's what I want. All right, chat. I think with that, now that we've devolved into Dark Angels talk, I think that we will call that a stream. But thanks everyone for coming and hanging out. I know it's still holidays, and so a lot of people are still hanging out with people and chilling. So you diehards out here that came to talk with me about Adeptus Mechanicus, I appreciate you all. We'll most likely be back to regularly scheduled broadcasting next week. Actually, no, we won't. I wonder how many big events are happening next week. I wonder if I could look. One sec. We'll do an event search for next weekend and see how many large events are happening. And we'll see how many results we have to talk about. One. Sick. Oh, there is an event. Oh, but it's a 3-rounder. Wait, it's in my area. Hold up. I'm gonna call bullshit. I looked up for events this next weekend and this one didn't show up. God damn it, BCP. You suck so hard. Whatever. I might go to an RTT this weekend. It told me there were none, but there's one. So yeah, I guess I don't know what we're going to talk about next week. Oh, actually, you know what I do? I think we're going to talk about wish listing for the next data slate update. That's what we're going to talk about. So that'll be fun. So please come hang out with me next Tuesday. That's going to be January 2nd. We're not going to talk until next year. But otherwise, I will most likely have some Purple channel streams going on over the course of the week. I streamed once today, obviously. Might do some other stuff, I'm not sure, but basically I'm through New Year's I'm like basically largely taking the time off because I'm kind of burned out a little bit on videos and stuff. The meme list videos took a fuck ton of time, and I was pulling like multiple 20-hour days to get those out. So I am very tired, and I've spent a lot of time sleeping in the last 48 hours, and it's been great. And I'm going to probably continue to do that until Monday. So things will be a little inconsistent until then, but obviously once New Year comes and goes, we'll be back to our regularly scheduled stuff. But until then, I hope everyone has a wonderful time playing games and doing all that stuff. And yeah, you know, I hope everyone has a great New Year's and all those things. Crude faction, they can ally with Talic demons with chaos factions. Yeah. Maybe, like, it's probably how auxiliaries should work, right? Like, you just have, maybe there's just an auxiliary faction. Like, you can throw, like, Vespid and stuff in with crew and just have it be fine. And like bring on some old stuff. Like release a unit for like Demiurge and Nikasar, and then make it release a index auxiliaries, index like Tau sphere or something, and then ally it with Tau. You can take 500 points of them or whatever. That'd be sick. That'd be so cool. And then they could actually have their own mechanics and not just be bad Tau units that like don't spot and stuff. I don't know. There's gonna be a detachment for Crude. It'll be cool, and it'll probably be bad. Maybe the detachment for Crude is like the one with the lone operative strat, and it's actually super strong. I don't know. Cross my fingers. But yeah, I like the idea of Crude as an army, but not necessarily as the auxiliaries that add into another unit. All right. Anyway, chat, I'm gonna go ahead and pop off. Thanks everyone for hanging out with me. That's gonna be it for me today. We're just rambling at this point, so I'll nip this in the bud, and I'll say have a wonderful New Year's, everyone. So I'll see you in the new year. Hope you have a good time playing games, and I'll see you on the battlefield. Have happy wargaming, everybody.